Welcome to this series titled Tricky Questions and Straight Answers, Answers to Biblical Queries. That is an interesting question in this era of human rights. The statement made by the atheists and opponents of the Bible is that the sacrifice of Isaac was a cruel one and was a gross violation of human rights of both Abraham and Isaac. They are trying to prove that the God concept of Bible is so naive and the God of Bible is only a mythological God. There cannot be such a God who is so cruel. They are trying to discredit the Bible also along with the God of the Bible. The opponents say that God asked Father Abraham to sacrifice his son Isaac, born at a very old age. Abraham bound him and put him on an altar to kill him and sacrifice him, and even took the knife in his hands. In the last minute, God asked Abraham not to kill the boy and sacrifice him. Instead, God showed a lamb to Abraham, and Abraham sacrificed that lamb and came down. But there is a funny aspect to this question. Where did the atheists get the concept of human rights? According to atheists, the humanity originated by evolution. The monkey-type organisms evolved into us man. They start their story from energy, and the energy passed through different stages, and finally through animals became man. But evolution implies some of the progenies in every generation will be different and better adapted, better suited to survive. They say that the better suited individuals in a generation will destroy their peers in that generation and survive at the expense of others. And subsequently, those better adapted ones will propagate more and become a new species. That is the concept of evolution. It is not a survival of the fittest. If evolution is true, the law of nature is denial of rights. The stronger ones are competing with and destroying the weaker ones and eliminating them. Thereby, they thrive. So it's a very unfair system. Evolution itself is a very unfair system. Therefore, the protagonists of evolution have no right to project human rights, because the very mechanism by which they say that evolution took place itself is so cruel and full of denial of rights. As a matter of fact, Adolf Hitler eliminated millions of Jews because he believed in evolution, and he believed that the Aryan race are superior and they have a right to eliminate the inferior race of Jews. More than that, can evolution create a character by which one honors human rights? No morality, no good thing can evolve by evolution, because evolution is a very unfair system which will prefer only advantages and not disadvantages. In morality and human rights, we are trying to protect the right of everybody, especially the disadvantaged ones. That is why there are a lot of laws to protect the right of women and children, because they are exploited. So human rights essentially means protection of the right of the weak. Therefore, it is an anti-evolutionary thing, and human rights will retard the process of evolution. Can we believe that the evolutionary process created a value system which will work against evolution itself and drive it in a reverse course? It is not logical. Their concept of evolution is wrong. Their concept of human rights is wrong. Their concept of origin of universe is wrong. Their concept of God is wrong. Every concept is wrong. But in spite of the fact that they are incapable to talk about human rights, quite often they shed the crocodile tears, as though they are very much concerned about human rights. But they are not. They are taking the incident of the sacrifice of Isaac to argue against God. That's all. They want to use an opportunity. We should remember one thing, that thus are part of life. Life is filled with compulsions to act against one's own desires and liking. For example, a toddler is compelled to brush teeth, he doesn't like. A student is compelled to study, he doesn't like. He wants to sleep just like others sleep. But he has to burn midnight oil and work. He doesn't like it. A criminal is put in jail, even he doesn't like it. Putting in jail is preventing all human rights. Likewise, a driver is compelled to follow the traffic rules. Most of the drivers would like not to follow and go as they like. But in a civilized society, they have to. So every test in life, every cultural advance includes an abridgment of human rights. There is no doubt about it. But all the above examples are better for the society and the individual concerned, and therefore are good. In the case of Abraham and Isaac, they had the freedom to obey God or disobey God. It is very clear from the incident in the Garden of Eden. Adam, who had seen God personally, had the option to obey and disobey. Even Abraham and Isaac had the option to obey or disobey. They obeyed voluntarily. Therefore, there is no human rights involved in this. Human rights is forcefully doing something against one's own desire and against one's own freedom. But here it was a voluntary act, and therefore the question of human rights doesn't arise at all. Because of this only, our country decriminalized attempted suicide. The argument is that somebody is trying to kill himself and it is his freedom and it is taken voluntarily. Why should the government interfere in that? In this background, can we question the decision of Isaac and Abraham to decide according to their choice? As a matter of fact, it was an expression of their human rights. And the atheist should remember one more thing, that the origin of human rights is from the Bible. The Bible brings out the special status of the human rights as a special creation by the hands of God. The creation of man was done directly by God. The creation was in the image and likeness of God, with all advanced faculties like free will, intellectual capacities, emotions, etc. So he was given a special status by God. And the God promulgated the laws to protect the life and property of man also. If you read the Old Testament, God promulgated a number of laws to protect the human rights of the people of Israel. And as a matter of fact, all the laws in the world are derived from the law of the Old Testament. One of the most eminent jurists ever produced by India, Mr. Justice Krishna Iyer, declared in the Lawyers Conference in 1985, held at Kollam, that the Indian Penal Code, Indian Criminal Procedure Code, and all such codes were derived from the law of the Old Testament. Yes, it is an accepted fact. And also, we should remember that all the human rights movement, including the movements against slavery, was led by committed Christians. In India and in Kerala even, most of the human rights-based laws, especially in the pre-independence era, were the result of the hard labor of the missionaries, including the prohibition of sati, abolition of the laws against the marriage of widows, the enactment against child marriage, etc. We already saw that the human rights were derived from the Bible only. Evolution cannot account for human rights. We also saw that Abraham and Isaac took the decision to obey God voluntarily. It was not a compulsory thing or a forced thing. When somebody takes an action voluntarily to do something, no human rights issue is involved. Then the question arises, okay, there is no human rights violation as Abraham and Isaac took the decision themselves voluntarily using their free will. Still, was it not cruel on the part of the God to ask to do what he asked them to do that is to sacrifice the only one son Abraham had, that too a son who was received at a very old age. An expert surgeon and also a murderer may tell a person that he or she would open the heart of the other person. The knowledge about the intent of the surgeon will not cause any pain, because the person has faith in the surgeon that the surgeon will not do any evil. Secondly, that the person knows that the surgeon's intention is only for his benefit or for his good. Therefore, there will not be any undue pain or fear. On the other hand, the information about the intent of a murderer, that he is going to open the heart of a person, would definitely cause very deep pain in the heart of the other person, because he knows that the intent of the murderer is not good. The murderer wants to kill him. Likewise, the victim knows that the procedure is going to be disadvantageous to him, and in all probability that it is take his life. Therefore, it will definitely cause undue pain. What would have Abraham felt when God commanded him to sacrifice his son Isaac? The feeling of a person who is interacting with the surgeon or the person who is facing a murderer. In regard to Abraham, Abraham knew God personally. God talked to him many times. So there was a strong relationship with God. Secondly, Abraham knew the power and sovereignty of the God who was talking to him at this time. He knew that this God is good also. Therefore, there would have had any pain in the heart of Abraham. Thirdly, we should remember that Abraham had strong faith in God, that he believed firmly that God will resurrect his son from the ashes after the sacrifice. This we read in Romans 4:17 and also Hebrews 11:19. Both these portions says that Abraham had the strong faith that his son would be resurrected. Therefore, the commandment would have created no undue pain in the heart of Abraham. He knew that this is a test of his faith and he would succeed in this test, and that he would be benefited immensely from the success of the test. This was not a commandment which would have affected Abraham only, it would have affected Isaac also. So let us see the things from the eyes of Isaac as well. Isaac would have been about 35 years at that time. This can be deducted from the fact that he was carrying the heavy load of wood to the hill Moriah to conduct the sacrifice. Therefore, he couldn't have been a boy. His mother is said to have died immediately after that at the age of 127. He was born at the age of 90. From that, we can deduce that he would have been around 35 years of age at the time of the incident of the sacrifice. Isaac also wouldn't have had undue agony because of the commandment of God to sacrifice him. The first reason was his faith. Secondly, he would have known that he was going to be benefited immensely from the test. As a matter of fact, faith is stronger than any anesthetic used by the surgeons before surgeries. When a person faces a surgery, the knowledge that anesthetics would be used reduce the pain and undue anxiety. In our present case, Abraham and Isaac had very strong faith, and that strong faith would have avoided undue anxiety and pain from their heart. This is our experience also. Whenever we have faith in our heart, we take challenges very lightly. For example, if you make a child sit on a very high pedestal and ask her or him to jump into our lap, they will immediately do. Even if the height is 10 feet and all, they will definitely jump down. Why? They have the faith that their father or mother is asking them to jump. Therefore, even a kid wouldn't mind jumping. This is the effect of faith. Faith avoids pain. In regard to Abraham and Isaac, their uniqueness was not that they didn't have anxiety about the sacrifice, but their uniqueness was the strength of their faith, which helped them to avoid any undue anxiety or pain about the severity of the commandment given by God. No wonder why Abraham and Isaac voluntarily agreed to subject to the commandment of God. Think about Isaac. He was a man of 35 years. He couldn't have been bound easily if he resisted. That too, when Abraham would have been about 130 years, very old. This means that even Isaac subjected himself to the commandment of God voluntarily. Therefore, no cruelty, no human rights violation, or anything of that sort was involved in the sacrifice of Isaac. Therefore, the commandment to sacrifice Isaac did not involve any human rights violation or any cruelty at all. As Abraham and Isaac had freedom to obey or disobey, as is evident from the free will given in the Garden of Eden, they voluntarily decided to obey God, considering the fact who God is. They knew this good God. Secondly, they were very sure about as to what the outcome would be. The challenging decision taken by Abraham and Isaac were definitely voluntarily and based on their faith, and therefore involved no human rights violation. The greatest human right is freedom, but humanity is not enjoying freedom as they are under bondage to sin. Jesus Christ incarnated to die for man and liberate him from the bondage of sin. The freedom from bondage of sin is available to those who believe themselves to be under the bondage of sin. That is, they are sinners. This can be concluded by introspecting for 5 minutes that oneself is a sinner. Secondly, Jesus died in their place on the cross of Calvary to bear the punishment which was due to them. It is almost like paying a debt created by me, by somebody else. When I was a sinner, I deserved to be punished eternally. And Jesus, on the cross of Calvary, suffered the whole punishment on my behalf. Thirdly, to avail this freedom, one has to accept Jesus as the Lord and decide to follow the instructions of Jesus in the book of the Bible. The good God of the Bible is the greatest protector of the human freedom and human rights, as he was willing to kill his own son to redeem the sinners. Therefore, God is the greatest human right protector. What is your response? If God allowed his son, Jesus Christ, to die in your place to save you from the punishment of sin, wouldn't you believe in the sacrificial death of Jesus Christ and accept him as the Lord and Savior, so that you will be freed from the bondage of sin and you will be free forever, enjoying the ultimate human right? Thank you, one and all. May God bless you.